Okay, besides standard ACL, we also have something what we call the complex ACL. Okay, let's look at the three categories of complex ACL: dynamic ACL, reflexive ACL, and time-based ACL. First, dynamic ACL. The dynamic ACL is used for authentication. That means when someone from a remote site try to access to a server, you do not know whether this person from the or this PC from the remote site is a legitimate one or not. You will want to authenticate. So when it's authenticated, then your router will create a dynamic ACL to allow the traffic to pass through. If the authentication is unsuccessful, the dynamic ACL will not be created, and then the PC will be denied access to the server they want to protect. So how do we do authentication? It depends. So we can use the telnet to do authentication. So dynamic ACL are dependent on telnet connectivity. When the telnet authentication is successful, then the dynamic ACL will be created to allow the traffic to pass through. So user who wants to traverse the router by default will be blocked by the extended ACL. So by default, you are trying to protect your connection. So until the telnet connection is successful. So when there's a successful telnet connection, the router will allow that particular connection to pass through. So they use telnet for authentication purposes. So when the telnet connection is successful, the telnet connection will be dropped, and then the dynamic ACL will be activated to allow the particular traffic to pass through for a particular period of time. Let's look at this later we'll look at an example of this. When do you want to use dynamic ACL? You want to use it to allow remote users to access your server. These users are connected from a remote location. For example, they are maybe connecting from home, from some cyber cafe, from anywhere. Because they are connecting from anywhere, you can't authenticate them by their IP address. So the only way to authenticate them is by user ID and password, and then you can use the telnet feature. Because telnet have this user ID and password feature. So dynamic ACL will authenticate the user using telnet and then permit them limited access using the dynamic ACL that is created. So when you want your host, so this is the first instance, the first example. The second example is you want your host on your own local network to access servers on the remote network that is protected by a firewall. You can also use that. You can enable access to this remote system only for a desired local host. So basically this is for remote access to protect your server from remote hosts, or to protect the remote server from your own host. Let's look at let's look at an example of a dynamic ACL. So in this example, the user at PC1 want to access PC3. By default, we do not allow PC1 to access PC3. But if this is an administrator, we allow him to pass through. How do we define whether he's an administrator or not? We use the telnet for them to authenticate to R3. So PC1 before, if it does not telnet to R3, PC1 will not be able to access to PC3. We're not allowed to do FTP, HTTP to PC3. So in order for PC1 to be allowed access to it, the administrator at PC1 need to telnet to R3. Then a dynamic ACL will be created to allow traffic from PC1 to go to PC3. Let's look at the configuration part. First we create in R3 a username and a password. So in this case, the username is student, the password is Cisco. Then we create an ACL to allow telnet, to permit telnet from any location to 10.2.2.2. Whereas 10.2.2.2, 10.2.2.2 is R3 serial interface IP address. So first we must allow telnet PC3. Okay, then we create this dynamic ACL, okay, with a timer of 15 minutes. Okay. So this dynamic ACL will be activated for 15 minutes only to allow, and this ACL will not be activated until the telnet is successful. Okay. And this ACL actually, so this ACL is a dynamic ACL, and you will actually permit IP, okay, you permit all IP packets from 192.168.10 to go into 192.168.30 network. Okay, back to the diagram, it will allow this network as a source to enter to this network as the destination. So by default, this access is not allowed until a dynamic ACL is created and then activated through the telnet connection. Then PC1 will be able to access to PC3. Okay, then we go to the serial interface 0001 here and apply the ACL going in. So we allow telnet, okay, and we allow this dynamic ACL to allow this network to access to this network. Okay, so going in. Okay, then we need to activate the telnet. So we go to our line BTY, our telnet line. Then we say login local. Login local means that I'm going to use the local username and password that's saved inside R3. Okay, that's saved inside R3. Okay, then we run this auto command, okay, access enable, okay, to activate this dynamic ACL. Okay, don't worry about the configuration. Okay, you will not be tested on this configuration, but basically understand the concept of dynamic ACL. Okay, is to allow ACL to be created but not activated. Okay, it will be inactive until a telnet session is successful. Then this ACL will be activated for a predetermined period of time. Okay, the purpose is to allow remote hosts to access to your network. Okay, and this remote host will only be allowed to your network if they can establish a successful telnet session. Okay, that's for dynamic ACL. Okay, next let's look at reflexive ACL. Okay, reflexive ACL is similar to the established keyword that we learned earlier on. Okay, remember, established traffic is return traffic that come back. Okay, so any traffic that's initiated from your own network is, okay, when the return traffic come back, you allow. Reflective ACL do the same thing. Okay, it allow reply traffic from a known outbound packet. So packet that went out and the return traffic come back, you allow this packet to come back to the source. Okay, so basically the router will examine the packet that's going out. Okay, keep an entry in the router, and when the packet is trying to come back, okay, you will create a temporary ACL to allow the reply packet to come back. Okay, so this is a temporary ACL. So it will be created when the IP session begins, and will be removed when the session ends. Okay, so this is a bit more powerful than this established command. I will not go into the details between the difference between established and reflexive, but basically reflexive is more powerful and it can examine more in details of the packet compared to established. Okay, so network administrator will use established ACL to allow traffic can come out from the network and allow the traffic to come back. Okay, let's look at an example. Okay, so here is your trusted network. Outside is your untrusted network that's connected to your ISP. So if there's initiated from outside, the traffic trying to come in on their own, you block them from coming. But if the traffic was initiated from inside, okay, and then the return traffic come back, this kind of traffic that's initiated from inside will be allowed to come back. This kind of traffic will be blocked if it's initiated from outside. Okay, how do we configure this? Okay, first we created outbound filter traffic that's going out. So, okay, traffic that's going out, any traffic that's come, TCP traffic, and so we are now filtering TCP traffic that's where the source IP address is 192.168. So any packet that is 192.168. So this will include these two networks, 192.168.10.11. Okay, and going to where the destination IP is any, going to the internet. Okay, I will permit them, and the keyword here is I must do reflexive ACL. So I will reflect TCP traffic. So this is a keyword. Okay, so this is the text that you can put. Okay, so I'm going to reflect on TCP traffic. Similarly, ICMP packet, your ping packet. If a ping packet was initiated for inside the ping reply, you also want to allow it to come back. So same thing, ping packet from your own network to your internet, you also allow the ping packet to come back by reflecting the ICMP traffic. Next, I create another ACL called the inbound filter. Okay, so this will be coming into your network, and I will evaluate TCP traffic here. I will evaluate ICMP traffic here. Okay, now I have two ACL now. One is called outbound filter, one is called inbound filter. Where do I apply the ACL? I will apply here, 000. Here is your outbound filter, here is your inbound filter. So outbound filter allow this network to go out, reflect the traffic, and when the return traffic come back, I will evaluate to see whether the traffic is legitimate traffic, and I will allow them to come in. Okay, so this is called reflective ACL. Okay, the last one is on time-based ACL. Time-based ACL, the concept is very simple. This ACL will be activated based on time. So you create a time range, and this ACL will only be active on a certain period of time. And the time range, you assign a name to the time range, and then in the ACL we refer to the name in the ACL. Okay, let's look at how do we configure time-based ACL. Okay, time-based ACL first, we define a time range, and this is a name you give to the time range. So let's say every other day. Okay, and this every other is a periodic. That means on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 5 p.m. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So this time range, every other day, is referring to Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Next, you create the ACL access control list, and then you write the access control list. The additional thing you will write is, this access control list will only be activated by the time range called every other day, which is here, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 5. Then similarly, you can apply this ACL, using the same command, IP access group. So that's for time-based ACL.